Hmm. Well, I think that this is going on. I don't know what this one, if this is a live one or not. I think I messed something up. See if I can't fix this. I think I just messed up this stream. I think it's live, but at the same time, I don't think. I'm not sure what's going on here. Hmm. Let's see. I don't know how I messed that up, but I did. Let's see here. Stream. So this one's public. Hmm. Yeah, that's not working. Hmm. Let me. Where's my live stream? Stream key. Hmm. Well, hmm, okay. So I think I've got everything going now. But all right. Usually on streams is how it kind of works. Usually a lot of people have seen these as far as the members and the program members. This week I've actually got some stuff to do tonight, so I'm just going to set a timer for 45 minutes. So I got 45 minutes going. And as far as this week, finally, I got that Ridline video finished. That one came out really well. We actually used their new pump that has a lot more power to it. I was actually pretty impressed with it. I did not know how that was going to turn out, and I'm happy that I did do that because um, I don't know. I wish that I could try like a CLR and like other chemicals to kind of give a real comparison of what it does. But if you're going to be doing a larger outboard, I definitely think you're going to need a little bit more as far as like the amount of it. So you're going to need like 2 gallons, maybe a gallon, 2.5 gallons, depending on the size of the engine. But I mean, that ended up really, really well. I ended up having to build a fish cleaning table, which is not really the normal type of content that we make, but I had to make it, and I wanted to kind of see how people would receive it, and if you guys liked it, if you didn't, and it did pretty well. And then finally, we got the 90, that two stroke. I finally got that thing back together. I got gas for it. I pre mixed some oil into the gas. I'm going to start that in the next like day or two. So that'll be going on. And then I was also able to save that steering helm. So I actually got that video published too. And anybody that's following the channel kind of see all those different videos as far as what we got published this week. So there's like 3 or 4 of them that we got out. And then also for those of you that are channel members or program members, you already know this, but I'm in the process of making a prop video, like all about props as far as the rake and the cupping and like just everything in general about what goes on with that with that whole deal. And so I've had that made. I just haven't been able to actually get it recorded. And then I got half of it recorded today. And then in the middle of recording it, the power company started tearing up the front yard and boring out and running new lines through out in front of the building. And so they're running a generator all day. So I wasn't able to finish recording that. So hopefully I'll be able to get that done at the end of this week. Just changing this title here because I don't normally do trying to do one public live a month, and so that's what's going on here. I'm not the best at getting it all set up. So other than that video is going to be coming out. I'll probably get that done this weekend, so maybe this weekend I'll get that out. And then also got some requests for a stator video that I might end up being able to make this weekend. People wanting to know. There's a couple people wanting to know about like charging and stators and alternators and like how that whole process goes. So I might be able to get that done. As far as questions go this week, the 2 main ones. So one of them was from James, and he wanted to know, does the standard helm go to the upper station and the dual helm go in the console, and how do you know? So what he's talking about, what James wants to know here, is on like a Verado. So on a Mercury steering system, their power steering system, you have two different helms, and they are different. So it all really depends on who installs the system. There isn't really a guarantee of the standard helm is going to be in the upper station and the dual helm in the bottom, or vice versa. Like, really, they want the standard in the top, but that's not always how it goes. Helm one sometimes has the standard, helm two sometimes has a standard. It's more important that you understand how the system works in order to figure out which helm you're dealing with, because you can do it both ways. So with that system, when you've got two helms on the steering system, since it is a power steering system, you're going to have a pass-through helm. So you're going to have a steering pump, and out of that steering pump, it's going to be creating pressure. That pressure is going to be going to one of the steering helms. That is basically your pass-through or your dual steering helm. The reason it's called a dual helm is because the high pressure from the pump goes into that helm, and then when it comes out the helm, out of the return line, it's going to have high pressure coming out of that helm, which is going to go up to the pressure line on the second helm. And then whenever the line comes out of that helm, it's going to have low pressure coming out of that helm, which will then return back to the pump. So if you look at the helm, and like if you're trying to figure this out and you've got a boat that's got these steering helms on them and you don't know which is which, you need to follow the return line. It's going to have a T on it for tank. Usually they all have letters stamped on the helms. It'll have an L, an R, which is left and right, going to the steering cylinders or going to the autopilot pump, whatever you have type of system you've got. And then also a P and a T. P is for pressure, which is pressure coming from your power steering pump. And then T is tank, and that goes your return line. So if you hook them up backwards and you have your dual helm, which has high pressure coming out of the return line, and you put that to the power steering pump, it's going to pressurize that steering pump, and it's going to blow fluid all over the place. Like, it's going to just, the caps on those steering pumps, they vent basically. So if you pressurize that steering pump, it's going to blow steering fluid all on the inside of the pump. You're going to make a big old mess. So if you're trying to diagnose it, look at the T or the return line coming out of the helm. And if it goes to the other helm, that's your pass-through helm. And if it goes to the tank, that's your standard. And again, depending on who puts the system in the boat is going to depend on which is which, because I've seen it both ways. Some will have the standard low pressure coming out of the pump at the top, and then some will have them at the bottom. So it depends on where the power steering pump is. If the power steering pump is in the back of the boat, a lot of times they will have the pressure line be up on the top and the standard on the bottom. But again, it all depends on who installed it. There is also, if you take the pump off of it, you can take the steering wheel off, you can take the tilt mechanism off of it, and then remove the steering helm like itself, the little like helm. And on the top of it, you'll have dots. If you have one white dot is the standard, two white dots is the dual. I'm pretty sure. I might have the reversed. I usually just look at the lines, but I might have the reversed. I want to say one white dot is the standard, two white dots on the pump. It's on the helm itself is the dual. But that's kind of how you can tell the difference between whether you got a dual or you got a standard, is the pressure coming out of it. And that's the reason why, because if you hook the high pressure up to your power steering pump, you're going to blow fluid all over the place and you're going to make a big old mess. It's going to be not good for you. And then Ricardo also wants to know, how do you get the steering end caps off of the steering cylinder on a Verado? Can it be done on the engine? And that depends on how old the steering cylinder is. Some of them, because of the pressure that's inside of the cylinder, and then also the time with, that cylinder moving back and forth with the pressure and the time, like, a 15, 20-year-old cylinder, those caps do not like to come off. So if you leave it on the engine, Um, Sometimes, yes, you can break them free. You need a lot of leverage, but a lot of times, if you can't break them free, then you got to take them off and you'll have to heat it up. Leverage is going to be king here. Obviously, the longer a handle that you have on your wrench to take that cap off, the easier it's going to be. But if you don't have, a long wrench and you can't apply heat, then you're probably not going to get that cap off. So, yes, it can be done on the engine, but it's not always the case. And then one other question I'll get to before we kind of go through and see what kind of comments that we got is our friend Christopher Williams, which actually I picked this question because Chris actually sent me something that I did not open up yet. I do want to open this up, Chris. I really appreciate it. Chris sends me all kinds of stuff. He's awesome. He actually have this box here, and the guy at the post office or the UPS guy was kind of like he's making fun of it. He's like, oh man, we don't let people put blue painter's tape on the boxes because they don't hold up. So just wanted to see, got me a note here that I'm going to read later. I'll read this later, Chris. Thank you. But what do we got here? So looks like you got me some, what is this? Magic? Tap Magic? Oh, cutting fluid. Thank you, Chris. Got me some cutting fluid. And then also, what else we got here? Spider, Magic Blue Goo, metal cutting lubricant. Thank you, Chris. So, Chris, always give me the hookup, sending me cool stuff. I really appreciate it. And so, let's talk about your question here. He says, what's your opinion on reliability, two-stroke versus four-stroke, with the exception being that crappy E-Tech G2? I always argue that the two-stroke is more reliable, much less moving parts, no valves or timing components that can fail. Plain simplicity. My 1999 Mercury 40 horse, which I never winterized, ran ethanol fuel due to availability, premixed with a surplus of Mag 1 brand oil that I had. The guy I sold it to in 2015 is still running it hard to this day with that same surplus of 20-year-old two-stroke oil. I just don't see four-stroke taking the same abuse while still running strong. So, my opinion on that is it depends on the engine, honestly, because I've seen four strokes with thousands of hours, and you don't really see two strokes get thousands of hours like that. Looks like I can only put so much. I'm trying to put this question in the chat so people can see it. But it looks like you can only put so much in here. So this is the question that we're talking about. That way other people can see it. And yeah, it's going to depend on the engine, dude, because two strokes, yeah, they are more simple, but it depends on the age and where it's at. So like if it's up north, then I mean, two strokes, people run those things 40, 50 years. So they're also not really putting 6,000 hours on the engine. Whereas in say South Florida or Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, anywhere that there is warm weather all the time, then a lot of, those engines, people can run them all the time. People run, thousands and thousands of hours because they'll, like charter captains, they'll put 2,000 hours on an engine in a year. And so for a four-stroke, I think a four-stroke takes that a little bit better. And I think a two-stroke, because it's simpler, it also takes a lot more abuse and crappy fuel. And depending on the two-stroke, carbureted engines are super reliable because it's a carburetor. So, you just feed it and it just runs. Not really fuel efficient, but as far as reliability goes, I think they are reliable. If you take a 30-year-old two-stroke engine from South Florida, though, I don't think they're as reliable, and it's mainly because of the environment. So if you take this engine and you let it sit in the sun, in the weather, and in the heat, underneath that cowling, in the middle of winter in the dead of sun, or I mean, the middle of summer in the dead sun, under that cowling could be 140, 150 degrees, depending on what color the cowling is. And so if you take 20, 30 years of that engine being for 5 months out of the year, 150 degrees under the cowling, it just makes the electrical components wear out a lot quicker, is what I'm really trying to say. Is like, think about one of the biggest problems with the Johnsons and the Evinrudes, like the Ocean Pros and those things down here in South Florida. You put it up in New York or North Carolina or somewhere like that, you'll never see a problem. But down here in South Florida, they had plastic carburetor bowls. They had other problems that those parts would warp. They had a timer base on them, and the engine would get so hot that it would melt the timer base and it would throw the timing off. You had stator failures and other like switch box failures, and a lot of that was due to heat. And so I would say, depending on where the engine is going to depend on the reliability. So, in the discussion of a two-stroke versus a four-stroke and reliability goes, I think that both of them do have a certain aspect of reliability to them, but at the same time, I don't know of too many people that are getting 6, 7, 8,000 hours out of, a two-stroke in South Florida. If you put it up north, again, I would say, I don't know if I'd call them more reliable, but I think they're both good. As long as you take care of them, they're both going to last you. Four strokes are a little bit more complicated with the valves and all that stuff. But as far as reliability is concerned, I don't think that you could really say that one is more reliable than the other based on it being a two-stroke versus a four-stroke, because it's just a type of combustion engine. It's not really like reliability. More or less comes back to the brand and the model. Like, certain brands have better models that last longer, and other brands have other models that don't last as long. I mean, take a Yamaha two-stroke like that 90, that thing will live forever. Compare that to a Force engine from the 80s or early 90s. I mean, those things were junk. So they're both two strokes, but one is super reliable and one is super unreliable. So I think it would be more a discussion of the model opposed to the type of combustion engine that you're talking about. Now, as far as one other thing, I do want to show you guys this. So this is something that was sent to me, and I want to see if I can show you this. So if I go here and I'm trying to show you this picture, share screen. Can I share a picture window? I guess I'll have to do it as a window. So let me share that. So if you look at this is a clutch dog pinion, or a clutch dog pin from a lower unit that someone bent. So like, this is a flat bar right here. Here is the clutch dog pin, and this thing was bent, causing a shifting issue. Now, I mean, what you would have to do in order to bend the clutch dog pin, I mean, that's pretty serious. I mean, I guess it was having trouble coming in and out of gear, and it had hard shifting issues, and that was it. My guess is that something, they struck something or backed into, like, hit something. Like, I don't know if that is just normal wear that is going to cause something like that, because that's a pretty large gap. I know it doesn't look like it in a picture, but that's a pretty big bend when, again, that's on a flat bar, and you can see how much space is in between that bent pin. I just thought that was crazy that when that was shared with me. So I thought I would share that with you. I thought it was pretty nuts. As far as, there's not a lot going on as far as news, and then I'll get to some of these chat questions. There's not much going on in the boating world right now. There are some news. One thing that found was pretty cool. Torpedo is actually making um, props from, they don't have it live yet. Let me just share this story with you just so you can see what I'm talking about. But they are making, they're starting to make some of their props from plastic. So they're recycling plastic, making props from ocean plastics. They're Torpedo making 80% or close to the quality of virgin plastic. The typical way to integrate new materials is to start with a small percentage, maybe with just 10% or 20% recycled content. Florian Dieger, leader of the project with Torpedo's new advanced engineering team, said in a statement, however, we decided to aim higher. We made our prototype propellers from 100% recycled ocean plastics, and we're thrilled to report that they surpassed all benchmarks in the first round of environmental and stress testing. So I thought this was pretty sweet. I mean, granted, you're only ever going to be able to make this for torpedoes, trolling motors, stuff like that. But in order to just take, recycled plastic and be able to make a propeller for it, I mean, that's outstanding. I mean, that kind of stuff is super cool to me. Might be kind of boring to some other people, but I think that's pretty sweet where you can take some recycled plastics and repurpose it for a propeller. So I thought that was pretty neat. Now let's go and see. So David Pegaro, I can't say your last name. I don't know why. Pegarero. No, not Rero. Pagero. Davidson Pagero. Brother, need your help. Well, not sure what you got going on, but yeah. Jason, hello, and how's it going? It's going all right. Just kind of going through the lives. Let me take a drink here. Got done with that prop video. That thing is, you guys are gonna like that video. I think I packed a lot into it, going through the cupping, through the rake, through the pitch, diameter, and all the whole angle of attack and all that stuff. So I wish I was able to finish that video today, but other than that, it's all going pretty good. The cable guy says, sup. What's up, cable guy? What's going on? Colin Kinney says, hey, hello. Tuna Master, how often should I change my plugs in my 2000 Optimax 225s? I would say, being a two-stroke, I would change those plugs every, 200 hours, somewhere around there. I think that the intervals is like 300 hours, but two strokes love spark plugs, and those plugs are like $2 a piece, $3 a piece. So I would probably, actually, no, those might be a little bit more, but I would say probably 200 hours, somewhere in there. If it's giving you trouble, go ahead and change them. A two-stroke loves spark plugs, even an Optimax. So every couple hundred hours, I would be changing out those plugs. Mercy Buku. Thank you, Saria. AC Products, already ordered Ridlime. Going to give that a try next weekend. Awesome. AC Products. I mean, dude, Ridlime I was actually rather impressed with how that went. I mean, I think, I did two things that I kind of messed up on that one. Number one was I let that go like 45 minutes without watching it, and I lost some of the Ridlime, so I had to dilute it. I should have diluted it with vinegar or CLR or something like that. And then also, I wish I would have gotten another jug of the Ridlime, because like if you do a 50-50 mix, so a 50-1, so you've got, or a 1-1, I guess it is 1-1. You got a gallon Ridlime, you got a gallon of water. They're together. You got 2 gallons in that bucket. As soon as that pump starts going, depending on how big your engine is, if you've got like with that 90, it would take about a gallon of water just to fill the power head. So if you've got something bigger than that, then I would probably go with like 2 gallons. So that way you're starting with 4 gallons. You'll probably hold 2 gallons in your power head if you got like a 225, a 250, something like that. So that's the only thing that I would say. But that stuff worked outstanding and I left a ton of junk in that. You don't have to take apart any of the stuff. Don't take your head off. Don't take water jackets off. None of that stuff. But just hook it up and run it. You're going to be rather impressed. I was. Charles says, I second Tuna Master. How often realistically should you change out plugs? I mean, it depends on how you run it. I've seen charter guys run 500 hours on plugs, and then with the Optimax being the two stroke, I would say every couple hundred hours. That's usually the biggest problem with those is spark plugs, ignition coil. I mean, Optimaxes can get pretty finicky. So if you go 200 mile, really just check them. So every 100 hour, whenever you do your fuel filters, it's not hard to pull the plugs out. Okay, so it is an Optimax. I mean, you have to get the right angle. So depending on the model of the Optimax, some of them, the plugs are kind of a pain to get to. You have to split the pan to get the bottom ones. But I would just say when you change your fuel filters, pull two of the plugs out. If like you got 6-cylinder, pull the two of the plugs out, take a look at them and see what they look like. And then, if they're burning right, then put them back in. And then 200 hours, check them again. If they're going, then, go another 200 hours and 300 hours. If they burned up, then change them out. So it's more of a checking opposed to like an actual hour, I guess you'd say. I mean, probably the best way I could say it. Caesar Nobra. Hola de Portugal. So, hello, the cable guy. Any advice on cleaning mold off of Sea-Doo seats? I flush with salt Terminator after every use of my boat. So as far as mold goes, off of the seats, I can't think of the actual stuff. There is, what I would do is, what's the guy's name that does detailing? Drake's detailing. That's the guy. Drake's detailing. This dude, trying to think, he had a video of cleaning the seats and stuff, and I forget what the mixture was that he used, and that's what I would use. So I'm just pulling up this video here to kind of check it, see what I can find for you real quick, because wash, wet sanding, scratching, buffering, polish, detail, ceramic, punch, clean. I'm not 100% what was the solution that he put on the seats. So let's see here. What did he do? I'm just checking this video out, and here it is. So it looks like he was using Home Depot outdoor bleach, but I want to say he put something else on there. Looks like he just used bleach and a brush and kind of like washed them out. Home Depot outdoor bleach is all he used. So I would try that. I would just try and spray on the bleach and then try and brush it in there. And yeah, use a paintbrush, spray the bleach on there with like a spray bottle, and then try and get it off that way. That's going to be what I would try doing. Let's see here. Christian Hernandez, any advice on mercury voltage regulator? Will it make tack not work properly? It can. If you got voltage problems, then yes, it can give you kind of an issue. As far as the tack not working properly, most likely your tack's messed up, because I mean the tack just reads a signal that comes from the engine. Usually that comes off of a crank position sensor or a trigger, a stator, depending on what model you've got. But the voltage regulator, if that goes bad, then that, I guess, potentially could mess up the tack. But I would probably say that you've got a problem with your tachometer before I would say you've got a problem with, the engine itself or the wiring going from the engine to the tachometer. And again, depends on, any advice from mercury voltage regulator. I'm guessing you're talking about a two-stroke, because the rest of them all use SmartCraft, and that's just off of the computer. So I would make sure that your tack isn't messed up if you've got your tack not working properly. I would say 7, 8 times out of 10, the analog tack is what's failed, not necessarily the engine, because if your tack signal on the engine goes bad, then it throws off everything on the engine. So if the engine runs and you've got no issues with the engine running, then most likely there's not a problem with the engine. It's the tachometer itself. Holy Rusted Andy says, "Yee, Kista Singolthnem." I don't Sanglothnam. Kista, love your videos. They're very informative. First time catching you live. Thank you, Kista. Hope you're doing well. Richard Bennett, just wanted to say, really enjoy your videos. Very clear. Everything you say, go, young man. Awesome, Richard. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. And then that was the comment I was talking about. Let's go. I think I lost my place. Brandon, Power Stroke, what's up? Great videos and info. Thank you, Brandon. I'm going down to Marathon for mini season. I have some room on my Dusky 278 if you want to ride. Maybe. I don't know if I'll be down there for mini season or not. I don't really go out that much during mini season as much as I used to, just because it got so hectic down there that it got crazy. So I want to say I haven't been out like actually. Well, that's not true. I usually go bowling netting during mini season. So, but maybe Brandon. Fish all day. If you're buying a 2007 E-Tech 200 HO 450 hours used, what would you replace not knowing if anything had been? I mean, I wouldn't just go replacing stuff on an engine. So 2007, you are talking about, let me see, where's that coming at? I just lost it. If you're buying 2007, you're talking 13, 17-year-old engine. So 17-year-old engine, I wouldn't just go replacing stuff. I would definitely do all the service stuff. I would do the impeller, gear lube, pressure check the gear case, and change spark plugs, fuel filters, thermostats. Like I would do all that kind of stuff. And then other than that, unless something's like broke and not working, then there's no need to like just go replacing stuff. I mean, preventative maintenance, you got to be able to find the line between preventative maintenance and then just changing stuff just to change it. If something's like rusted and about to break off, then yeah, there you go. That's your sign. But I would do a visual of the engine, just a visual inspection of the engine. And based on the visual inspection, if you see something that's like, oh man, look at that thing's all busted, then like you change that. But other than that, just do the service stuff. Just do your maintenance stuff and go from there. That way, 100% this day, this hour, I've got, 100% full maintenance. And now, boom, you can have yourself on a maintenance schedule. So that way you can take care of the engine from then on out. And then, boom, as problems arise, then you can just kind of deal with that as they go on, if you know what I'm saying. Laying. I think I said that right. I have a 2005 Yamaha F250 with 800 hours. Just rebuild the whole midsection because of the corrosion issue and changed oil pump. Yep, there you go. I mean, the 3.3 250, a lot of people don't like them. They're, but I don't find anything wrong with them. Biggest complaint everybody has with the 3.3 is that they make oil. A lot of that has to do with the idle time and trolling, but at the same time, I don't care if you even heat that thing up and then run it. A lot of those 3.3s of that era, that was when they first started using the plasma infused cylinder walls, and a lot of them, they just made, like, you can't stop them from making oil. I mean, I know, it's not really making oil, you're just diluting the oil with fuel, but a lot of those 3.3s, you couldn't really stop that. But yeah, the midsection corrosion issues and changing the oil pump, I'm sure you did a speedy sleeve whenever you did the oil pump. So I think after you did that, boom, those engines are super reliable, and they're really quiet. But yeah, I like the 3.3s. I don't think they're that bad. Some of them can be a pain to work on because you got to take the intakes and all that stuff off. But once you get in the habit of just taking all that stuff off, they're really not that bad. I think it's a good engine. Brandon Powstroke says, I would look for something else if possible. Oh, so I think he's talking to you, Fish All Day. If you're buying a 2007 E-Tech 200 HO, I would look for something else if possible. I mean, I'm not the biggest Evinrude fan, so I think that their dealer network and the fact that they went out of business and the availability of parts and the availability of somebody that can work on it does kind of play a part. So you might kind of, think about that depending on where you're at and, what exactly you have as far as like, access to stuff. AC Products USA, as a diehard Evinrude guy, I would be looking to a four-stroke solution going forward. There you go. Dude is a hardcore Evinrude guy, and he's even telling you to kind of look for a four-stroke solution. So, I mean that's probably what I would look for too, unless it's a deal. I mean, honestly, a deal's a deal. So depending on the price and what it is, like I would buy anything. I mean, I've ran everything: Suzuki, Evinrude, Johnson, Honda, Mercury. I mean, I've owned pretty much every engine that you could own, and it all depends on the price. A deal's a deal no matter what. So if you get a deal on an engine, then you know I would take whatever really. Bruce Shepard, what's considered high hours on a used motor? Say a 2017 Suzuki 300, and it's 3,000 hours. That's like getting to that point. I would say 4,000 hours is more like towards the you know, hold up type hours, but age plays a big part of this. So if you're talking about 2017, then you're talking about an engine that is 7 years old. So let's do a little bit of math here. And if we do 3,000 hours divided by 7, that means that you're putting on about 430 hours, 428.5, about 430 hours a year. So most likely you're getting 2 services a year. So I would say that that engine, if it's getting 2 services a year and getting 428 hours put on it in a year, it's probably getting used every week, every other week. So most likely, what is that 428 divided by 12? That's 35 hours a month. So, I would say that that engine's probably got a lot of life left on it, because when it's used regularly like that, then they tend to last a lot longer. And I mean, there's tons of Suzukis out there that get into the 5, 6, 7, 8,000 hour mark. Again, depending on the maintenance. If you don't maintain it, the thing's going to fall apart. If you let it sit, it's going to fall apart. But if you're using it every other weekend and you're getting that many hours on it, then I wouldn't say that that's too many hours. Once you get up into 4,500, 5,000 hours, um, I guess it depends on how you plan on using the engine. If you plan on using it the way it's been used and you like are going to use it every other week, once a month or something like that, then you're probably not going to see any problems with it. But if you take an engine like that and then you only use it 2, 3 times a year and then let it sit outside in the weather, then that age and those hours might start creating problems that you wouldn't really have. But I mean, it's kind of the same discussion. It's always like the same thing is, abuse and neglect is what's going to kill it. So if you're using it, then I wouldn't say 3,000 hours is really too many hours. William Brown says, I know all too well about those plastic float bowls on Johnson two strokes. I found the Chinese replacement float bowls work better on those Mexican carburetors. So, yeah, those plastic bowls, I mean, up in the north, I don't know. I mean, I don't do a lot of work in the north, so like I don't really have anything to go off of, but I tend to see and hear that, people up north, they don't really have as many problems, whereas down here with the heat, those and ethanol. Ethanol is a whole nother thing, which is something that I want to do. I need to do. I do have ethanol here. And one thing that I am working on is another video about ethanol and the effects that it has on different stuff like carburetor bowls, fuel pump diaphragms, and that kind of stuff. And I'm kind of like playing around with that. So that is going to be a video in the future. It's just going to take me more time because I want to put age on stuff. So I want to use ethanol and try and figure out a way to put age on something like a plastic carburetor bowl or a, fuel pump diaphragm, something like that. But, I don't know. I never really played around with the aftermarket bowls. So if you found something on Amazon that like works really well, then by all means, because some of those Johnson stuff, I've got people that weren't able to find carburetor bowls. So, here you got this engine and these carbs have warped. Now it won't run right because obviously, you got a leak in the carburetor bowl. But problem being that they couldn't find bowls or couldn't find carburetor. So if you found an aftermarket alternative, then that's awesome, William. Luis Perez, hey bro, I'm from Puerto Rico. I have a two-stroke Yamaha 2003 200 horsepower. The kit water pump is the same. Oh, the same and other models. Uh, for the most part, yes. So 2000, wait, where'd that comment go? So 2003 202 stroke. It's going to have a 65 water pump in it. And yeah, the water pump plate, the water pump gasket. I want to even say the water pump housing. That's one thing that Yamaha is pretty good about, is that most of their stuff is like the same, like 150 to those 220 to the 3.3. Once you get in the 4.2, it's different. But like a 150 to say like a 250 3.3, the 65 69J, like, okay, so when I'm saying that, we're talking about the prefix of the part numbers. Yamaha uses prefixes on their part numbers, and like a 65, a 68W, a 6CA, like they have those designations based on the engine package. And that 65, that 202 stroke is going to be the same impeller as it is for the F-150 or the 3.3 liter. Once you get to a 4.2, they do, change that to a 6AW, other things depending on the model, 5GH, 69J, like they have designations, but a lot of them, they don't change them a lot. I mean, it's been the same drain seals, been the same oil filter, same impeller for 30, well, yeah, like 30, 40 years, some of that stuff has been the same. So that is one good thing. Same thing as the prop shaft seals. A lot of that stuff doesn't change. So yeah, the water, I don't know about the kit itself, but the impeller is going to be a 65. Water pump plate gasket's going to be the same. Like, yeah, definitely. So we've got that was Lee wants to say, is it worth continuing to put more money on a 2005 Yamaha F250 with 800 hours? I really want it run like new and last me 3,000 more hours. Well, if you just did the midsection, so biggest thing on that 3.3, when you did the midsection kit, somebody hopefully looked up in the power head. If you did the oil pump, hopefully the power got inspected. So the corrosion problem in the midsection sometimes would get up into the power head. So hopefully when you did the midsection, you were able to look up in the power head and see whether or not you had corrosion issues up there. Depends on what you're talking about as far as putting money into it. I think, yeah, it's worth putting money into it as far as service products and stuff like that and maintaining the engine. But if you just did the midsection and you just did an oil pump with a speedy sleeve, I don't see why you couldn't get a few hundred more, if not a few thousand more hours out of it. Are you going to get 3,000 hours out of it? If you put another 300,000 hours on that engine, I think you're going to probably start looking at power tilt and trim possibly issues, as well as a lower unit. Those lower units, you need to stay on top of them. But if you stay on top of the lower unit and you stay on top of servicing it, the next thing you might have to buy like a trim pump or something like that. But other than that, I would say, yeah, I mean, don't dump money in it. Like, if you blow the power head, going and trying to find a long block or a short block and change the power head, that's a different story. But yeah, putting service money into it and maintaining that lower unit, just check your lower unit. If you start to see it leak, figure out where the leak is, fix it. And then, yeah, you should be able to put a lot more time on that engine. Sean Odie is hard shifting in reverse, the first sign that I have a gearbox issue. I've isolated to the point I know it's not a cable control lubrication issue. Well, I mean, it all depends on hopefully you've watched these videos that I've got as far as all the lower unit stuff goes. And um, yeah, if you got a shifting issue, generally it's not the lower unit, but it's very possible that it is. So what we need to do is, when you say you've isolated it, have you isolated it to the point where, like, you can start and run the engine and you can shift it back and forth at the engine, and it shifts hard and has a problem at the engine with everything in the boat disconnected? I'm not going to beat this because we've talked about this quite a bit. Instead, I'm going to link you to a video that will help you diagnose this, and that will hopefully be super helpful. So here's one of them. Check this one out. So there's that. And then also I would check out, let me see here, another one. So also, if you drop the lower unit and made sure that the shift mechanism isn't, locking up or having a problem, because that's another deal right there. And then also this one. So check out those two right there. I'll check those two videos out and then see what's up there. Now, other than that, yeah, you're gonna need to diagnose it, but I would say guarantee that those shift throttle cables and all that other stuff isn't the problem before you go, taking apart your lower unit, which it could be a lower unit, but you're gonna have to check that out. Now, let me see. So that's been 45 minutes. We'll go another. I'm not going to do another 45 minutes, but what we will do is another 10, 15 minutes, and then I got to get off of here. So just putting the timer up. Yeah, checked all those other shifting issues before you go condemning the gear case, because usually it's something else besides the gear case. But I just showed you a picture of a clutch dog pin that was bent, causing a shifting issue. So that's it too. And let's see here. AC products. Hey, bud, regarding that Ridlime comment, I got the twin FICT 150s on a 25cc Sportcraft. So the 150s, yeah, I would say you'd need 2 gallons. I'd probably get 2 gallons. And then I don't really know if you can really use that stuff, like, use it 4 hours, 5 hours on one engine and then just use that same stuff on the next engine. I don't know if it chemically breaks down or not. I don't really know. Unfortunately, I wish I could say whether or not, it would or not, but you're definitely gonna need 2 gallons. So for sure, you're gonna need another one. Brandon Powerstroke says 2006 Verado 275. If I replace the trim tilt sensor, can I calibrate the max and min trim myself? Yes, if you have SC1000 gauges. So if you have SC1000 gauges, SmartCraft gauges, you can press the mode and plus button, hold them down, and it will go into your calibration menus. And you go to not the first one, not the second, but the calibration one. And then they call it a trailer limit. So then you just go into the trailer limit and you can, hit it and set it. And you should be able to set that trailer limit on a 2000. Wait, you said 2006. I can't remember so from 2004 to 2008, the Verado came out in 2004, but it was like November, December. So really it came out in 2005. But from 2004, 2005 until like 2008, there was like 4 or 5 different generation changes. There was a lot of PCM changes. There was a lot of mapping changes. So some of the features on those engines were not available on other engines. So I guess I can't really tell you 100% just because it's 2006, and 2006, there's like 3 different versions that went down during that year. So that's what I would try. If you got SE1000 gauges, press mode plus press plus, and boom, it should work. But if you just replace the tilt sensor, it it doesn't change the calibration. Calibration is already set. So the sensor is just a sensor. Sensor provides the values to the PCM or the computer, and based on the values that the computer gets, that's what it does. The programming is in the computer, not the sensor. So if you just change out your sensor, you're not going to have any problems because, again, with Mercury, the sensor just senses. So I don't think you have any problem there, dude. Squidgy Sailor. I don't know, I guess. Are Yamaha Enduros the hardest wearing small outboards ever? I mean, the Yamaha Enduros are possibly the most bulletproof engine ever. They still make the Enduro. So put it that way. And if you go to most other countries, like if you go to the Bahamas, you go to the Caribbean, you go to certain spots of Mexico, you go to Cabo, you go to Costa Rica, you go to Yucatan, you go to you know Panama, these other places in the Caribbean. If you go to the shore, you're going to see Yamaha Enduros everywhere. So, like, I mean, yeah, they are an outstanding engine, and yeah, I would say that they are one of the hardest the hardest wearing small outboards ever. I don't know. I'm not trying. I don't know what you're really trying to say there, but they're definitely an awesome engine. They're bulletproof. Like they're great. What's a small two-stroke outboard that gets you excited? I would say the Enduro. I mean, I think it's outstanding. Like I said, they still make it today. So yeah, I would say definitely a Yamaha two-stroke. Not that big a fan of Mercury's stuff. I like the Optimax. Not a huge fan of Suzuki's two-stroke stuff. I just think Yamaha's two-stroke is just phenomenally better than everybody else's. But when you get into two strokes, again, like we were talking about earlier, when Chris's question, it all goes back down to the make and the model. So different makes, different models, different years. Some were a lot superior to others. And out of all the models, I would say the Enduro is probably the most long lasting. And I mean, they started making the thing in what, I don't know when they started making it. Yamaha came to the United States in 1984. So they were making it back in 84 and they make it today. So you're talking about a 40-year-old engine that's still in production. So if that doesn't say reliability, I don't know what does. Fish all day. Thanks. E-Tech maintenance items and run it like a stole it copy. There you go, buddy. That's it. Maintenance and then run it. Oil. Make sure you keep oil. And those E-Techs, I don't really know. So, you got the two different types of oils and, the XD50 and 100 or whatever it is, make sure you run that oil. Like, I don't know. I don't know as much as far as the E-Tech and the oiling goes and some of the aftermarket oils, but I do know that oil is like, that's the crucial thing. Make sure you're oiling right on that E-Tech. And as long as you're oiling right, then run it like you stole it. Peninsula Boat Repairs, 3-cylinder Avenue 65. So, I mean, if you're talking about a 1965 engine, like I have no experience here. I mean, like this is twice my age. So 3-cylinder Evinrude 1965, zero compression on center cylinder with a steam cleaned looking plug. Other cylinders have perfect compression. Splitting it apart today and wondering your thoughts. You also said I repair fiberglass. My first time diving into my own engine. So yeah, bro, I mean 1965. I have no idea about that. And but once you pull the head, just pull the head off and take a look. If it's got no compression, most likely you got a hole in the piston or something like that. If you pulled that plug out and there wasn't any problem with it, then you might not have a hole in the piston. But if you got no compression, you got a problem. So I would pull the head off. And once you pull the head off, should be super easy. Should be, 10, 12 bolts, something like that. They'll have numbers on them. And again, 1965. I have no clue about any of this. This is just where I would start. Most of the heads will have numbers on them. They'll be circular, start from the middle, and they work their way out like this. So you take those out, like just crack the bolt, crack the bolt, and then go to the next one, crack it all the way around, circle out, and then go back and then take them out. So that way you don't warp it when you pull it out. And yeah, once you pull the head, you're going to see exactly what's going on. Also, check for a gasket. Like, can you get a gasket for a 1965 engine? I don't really know. I mean, who knows? So that's kind of what I got. Peninsula Boatworks, Canadian $2. Thank you for the super chat. I was shooting in the dark. Thanks. Yeah, dude, I'd be shooting in the dark too. 1965. I mean, like that thing's a lot older than I am. So yeah, pull the head and make sure that you can get the head gasket and the cable guy head gasket. You could have a head gasket problem. So yeah, I'd see if you can get a head gasket and then pull the head and see what you got. Corpse Grinder. Hi, bud. What's up, Corpse? Jim Var, 1970. Hi from Greece. I am a rich man. I have a 4-meter boat with a Mercury 8 horsepower 2-stroke model 1987. Well, I mean, a rich man doesn't necessarily mean anything about money. So you could be rich in many other ways. And if you get to take your boat out and enjoy it, then I would say, yes, you are a rich man. And hello, I've never been to Greece. I would like to go. That would be pretty cool. How do you feel? Says, how do you feel about the Mercury 125 2+2 engines? 2-stroke, just found one for my boat, 19-foot Mako. Motor was only used in freshwater, just rebuild carbs. She's purring. I don't really have a lot of experience with them, so depends on where you're at. That's going to be the first thing. Depends on where you're at, but if you change the plugs and rebuild the carbs and it's purring great, then roll out, man. I mean, if it gets you on the water, then and you can work on it, then I would feel great. Depends on where you're doing. I mean, if you're trying to go 90 miles offshore, then that there is that factor. But yeah, I mean, an engine's an engine. I would pay for sea tow if you're going offshore and carry an EPIRB. There you go. No problems. Joshua, 1992, 40 horsepower Mercury Classic 4-cylinder 2-stroke, question mark. I'm not sure what your question is, but sure. Brandon, I have a Vessel View 7-inch, the older model. So a Vessel View 7, on the Vessel View 7, yeah, it doesn't, on the Vessel View 7, so let me think. As far as the calibration goes on the Vessel View 7, I'm pretty sure that you can calibrate the trailer limit on the Vessel View 7. But what I'm going to do is here's what you do. So anybody that doesn't know how to do this, let me go ahead and share this just so you can see what I'm doing here. Let me present this, and we're going from a tab. Let me go from a window. I'm going from this, share that. So mercurymarine.com, and you go here, gauges and controls. We are going to displays, going to click on displays, and we're going to go to, wait a minute. They just changed all this. Here we go. Vessel view. And we're going to come down here and let's see here. Resources. Vessel view 703, 903, 403, 403, 702, 702, 903. Where is the Vessel View 7? That's what we want. Because these are none of these are yours. 702. Is that what they call it? The Vessel View 7? Pretty sure that it's not this. I'm almost. Yeah, I don't think it's this. It's not this. Actually, no, there might be this. Power, sonar. Let me see here. They just changed this site. Maybe it's, I mean, it is vessel view. And I'm looking for find your manual. What's this do? Find your manual. I agree. Let's check out. See, oh, that's pretty sweet. You can put in your serial number. So this is going to give me to, I mean, this is not going to, oh, this is pretty slick. Wow. Oh, these are just owner's manual. They don't let you download the service manuals, but that's pretty slick that it lets you do that. That's not what you care about, though. That's not what you came here to see. Gauges, digital. I don't know why it doesn't. They just changed all this. It's going to be on the MFDs. So we're going to displays, the MFDs, and down here, we're looking for a vessel view, but I don't see the vessel view 7. Maybe they're calling it, maybe it's a 702 because it's not a 903, it's not a 40, it's none of these. It could be this 702. So, yeah. If you look at this, it's going to show you exactly what you need to know. Setups, calibration, and we want trim, limits. I'm going to dismiss the time. I got to go, but let's go to limits. Limits, specific ranges. So limits, that is not what you're looking for. Back to the top. And we are looking for active trim, setup wizard, speed unit, features and operations. Active trim, nope, that is not. Trim profiles, operation, none of that is what you want. Limits, trim. Show, that's not calibration. Trim calibration allows the operator to trim position innermost, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so set up a calibration to calibrate the trim the engines all the way down in, and the recording reading to 0. So if you just hold the trim button down for 3 seconds, that should zero everything out. Trim the engines all the way out according to what you want it, and then you hit record, and that will save it. So there you go. There is how you calibrate it. If you wanted to calibrate it on that, and not 100% if that's the 7 or not, but that's what you're going to want to do. And that's how you do that as far as that. And you can also go to any of those other gauges if you want to see any of those other gauges and how to mess with those. And let me see here. Let's see here. Yep, Vestview 7, the older model. So I'm pretty sure the 702, that might be what they're calling the 7 since they didn't have that on there, but love to lie. Lee says, love to hear that. I changed 2 trim seal, steering cylinder seal, new shift throttle cables, did the lower unit leaking test, new spark plugs, new engine zinc, all fluid are new, treated like my baby. So yeah, I think you're going to have no problems there, Lee. So that's awesome. And we'll do 2 more comments and then I'll make it off here. Weller says, enjoyed your video of the older boats holding up. Have a 97 Hydrosport 21-foot center console bay boat. Has a 97 175 Johnson Ocean Runner. Talk about those carbureted plastic bowls with about 810 hours. That's awesome. Those old Hydrosports are really nice. They ride really nice. That 21 center console bay boat, My neighbor had one of those, and he put a 200 Suzuki on there, and he loved that boat. I think he dialed it into where he almost got it's in like the 40s, I want to say, is what he got speed wise. And then Lee, I just got my first boat this year. Most skills learned from your video. Watch your video every day and learned a lot from you. Good job, man. Thank you, Lee. Sean, you're the last one. I disconnected all cables and it shifts very hard into reverse at the engine, but easily finds forward and neutral. Yeah, drop the lower unit and see how the shift mechanism works. Watch those 2 videos that I linked in the description so you can kind of see what's going on there. And then other than that, I would definitely drop the lower unit and see how it shifts back there. But if it's only going into reverse being the problem, then and it's at the engine with it disconnected. Is the engine running? Is another question. And what engine did you say this was? Sean. Let's see here. I'm looking. You didn't say the engine, but there's also usually a shift position switch or a shift cutoff switch. And what that does is when you shift it into gear, it actually cuts 2 cylinders. Depending on the model, it'll cut out the engine. So that way it'll kind of like lower the RPM, which enables it to have an easier time shifting. So making sure that that system is working properly also might be something to consider. But other than that, drop that lower unit, see if the shifting issue is still a problem. And then also when you got the lower unit dropped, you'll be able to, shift it by hand and spin the propeller and see if it, you've got any problems there. Probably even change that lower unit oil and take a look at the color, because the color is going to tell you a lot too. If it's all gray, then yeah, you might be looking at something to do with the lower unit, but you've got a lot of tests to run. I would start with dropping the lower unit, shifting it at the where you've been shifting it, and then also shifting it at the lower unit and then draining the oil and checking that. And then based on what you find there, that might give you something. Other than that, I'm gonna go ahead and close this one out. Thank you everybody for showing up. I try to do this weekly. We have a members program with the channel. So if you join the channel, you can join a live just like this. And, there's not as many people, but it's one-on-one time. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Also, if you join the boaters program, then we also do the same thing. You can get into the lives as well and ask whatever questions you want. Tons of stuff to learn there as well. And other than that, everybody have a great week and thank you for showing up.